Good afternoon. Who are we? Youth Connect Africa. I'm so thrilled to be here this afternoon. We are going to go through this session where we talk about programming for youth. And we have a very interesting panel. I will start by inviting Joseph Manilakidza. He is a project manager, a project that is called Funguo. He will tell us more about that, and is from UNDP Tanzania. Joseph, you are welcome. I will also invite Syed. I will not misspell the other name. He is the deputy representative, resident representative for Sierra Leone. You're welcome. And we also have Tong Atuk from UNDP South Sudan. But before we start the panel, I will invite Honorable Patrick Gibrira, the Deputy Minister of Youth Affairs for Sierra Leone, to give keynotes. And afterwards, we have our Honorable Speaker, Minister, who will come and give keynotes for the session. You are welcome, Honorable.
Young people, are we in the room? Young people, are we in the room? Yes. Do we have the energy? Young people, do we have the energy? How are we thinking to do a reprogramming for young people? Do we have that? So I bring you greetings from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, who is around East Africa, in Ethiopia. We are moving this program now from the edge to the core, meaning young people have been at the edge for quite so long. So now we want them to be as part of decision makers in society. Example of that, 2018, when His Excellency the President won election, he decided to work. He called the young people to work with them. And 2023, in his second inning, he called more younger people to work with him. I happen to be the youngest minister in my country. So it's always unbelievable. Even today when I arrived, they were waiting for the honorable minister. And I was standing and they were still looking for the honorable minister. That is saying we are moving from the edge to the core. We are also moving from the edge to the core. I have said this and I will say it again, where young people are gathered. It's been so long. We have the human capital in Africa. We are in majority the young people. But we've been at the edge. So now we are coming to be a very core, at the core in all the programming. People should be part of it. So in short, we have decided, and as young people, we are moving from the edge to the core. And a programming that will bring transformative, lasting transformation to young people is what we are actually anticipating for this session. I thank you all, and I want to leave you with this. As young people, we are part of a journey that is greater than us, because the aged don't want to leave the positions for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The youth at the core, not at the edge. And this is a new era for Africa. C'est un honneur pour moi d'inviter Madame Honorable Aminata Traoré, la ministre de l'Entrepreneuriat national, de l'Emploi et de la formation professionnelle pour la République du Mali, de venir annoncer quelques mots avant qu'on continue avec le panel. Madame la ministre, vous êtes la bienvenue. A hand of applause, please, for Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Est-ce que la jeunesse africaine est dans cette salle? Qu'est-ce qu'on dit? Ohé? C'est ça? Alors, Mesdames, Messieurs les ministres, honorables participants, Mesdames, Messieurs, chers jeunes du Rwanda et de l'Afrique. À l'entame de mes propos, je voudrais ici remercier les autorités de la République du Rwanda pour cette belle initiative commencée depuis plus de 12 ans, qui est progressivement devenue un événement majeur dans l'agenda des gouvernements africains avec son adoption par l'Union africaine. Par la même occasion, je vous transmets les salutations du gouvernement du Mali et de tout le peuple malien. Mes remerciements vont également, particulièrement, au ministre rwandais chargé de la jeunesse et le bureau de Youth Connect Africa. J'ai l'insigne honneur cette année de conduire la délégation de mon pays à cet événement. En effet, la question de l'emploi, de la formation professionnelle, de l'entrepreneuriat sont des problématiques majeures et essentielles pour toute politique et stratégie de développement de la jeunesse dans nos pays. Mesdames et messieurs, selon la Banque mondiale, les jeunes représentent 60% de l'ensemble des chômeurs africains. Une enquête réalisée également en 2011 par cette même organisation a montré qu'environ 40% de ceux qui rejoignent les mouvements rebelles se disent motivés par le manque d'emploi. Selon le rapport du PNUD intitulé « Tendance mondiale de l'emploi des jeunes en 2024 », le taux de chômage des jeunes en 2023 est de 13%, soit 64,9 millions de personnes. La situation n'est toutefois pas la même dans toutes les régions de notre continent. Par conséquent, les gouvernements africains doivent s'atteler à trouver à répondre de façon efficace et efficiente à la problématique du développement de cette importante couche de notre société que constitue la jeunesse de notre continent. Cette jeunesse peut constituer un atout important pour le développement et la transformation de nos pays. Ce souci de tous les gouvernements de notre continent est illustré dans mon pays, le Mali, par l'engagement personnel de son Excellence le général d'armée Assimi Goïta, président de la transition chef de l'État, pour le développement de la jeunesse malienne. Comme preuve de cet engagement, il a déclaré, lors d'une de ses interventions, « Je suis jeune, si j'échoue, alors ce sera l'échec de la jeunesse malienne. » Comment penser les programmes de développement de la jeunesse dans un monde de plus en plus polarisé? En effet, chers participants, à ce panel, vous conviendrez avec moi que notre monde est aujourd'hui confronté à une polarisation importante. Les causes de ces polarisations sont souvent d'origine nationale, régionale ou internationale. Pour illustrer ces dits, je me baserai essentiellement sur l'exemple de mon pays, le Mali. Le Mali traverse depuis 2012 une crise sécuritaire qui a finalement abouti à une crise sociale, économique et culturelle, annihilant tous les efforts déployés par le gouvernement depuis plusieurs années pour adresser la problématique de la jeunesse. Cette instabilité est imposée à mon pays. Elle a engendré un certain nombre de polarisations que je vais essayer de vous présenter ici. Donc une polarisation non seulement au niveau national, mais aussi au niveau sous-régional et international. Quand on regarde sur le plan national, on peut parler aisément de polarisation ethnique. En effet, dès le début de l'insécurité dans mon pays, c'est surtout cette raison qui a été mise en avant par les mouvements armés et leurs sponsors. Cela a créé une division importante au sein de la population malienne et déstabilisé les fondements de notre pays, qui, je rappelle, est un pays avec une histoire millénaire de vivre ensemble. Dans une évolution récente, cette tentative de déstabilisation s'est étendue à une deuxième communauté nationale dans le centre de mon pays. Polarisation ethnique, mais aussi polarisation régionale. En effet, tout au long du conflit, il y a eu des tentatives de donner une connotation régionale en cherchant à diviser les régions du Nord et du Sud, mais aussi des polarisations religieuses. Les terroristes ont été également mobilisés par les sponsors pour appuyer les mouvements armés. C'est dans ce cadre que des mouvements comme Al-Qaïda au Sahel, qui prônent aujourd'hui un islam rigoureux et décalé des pratiques millénaires de la population malienne, sont entrés en jeu. Ces mouvements sont arrivés assez rapidement à entraîner dans leur sillon certains leaders religieux et des jeunes, créant ainsi une véritable polarisation religieuse. Mais on ne peut pas parler de polarisation religieuse régionale et ethnique sans parler aujourd'hui de polarisation économique. Les difficultés de notre gouvernement à offrir des opportunités à une majorité de jeunes a créé une frustration au sein de la jeunesse. Cette frustration engendre également une polarisation entre et le reste des jeunes moins privilégiés. Sur le plan politique, les jeunes s'engagent de plus en plus en politique, mais généralement pour mobiliser d'autres acteurs politiques et rarement pour eux-mêmes. Ils sont alors engendrant des problèmes de sécurité qui ébranlent souvent la stabilité. Nous avons aussi un pan de la polarisation que nous devons aborder aujourd'hui, et ce sont les polarisations communicationnelles. Il est très important aujourd'hui de noter le rôle des médias sociaux. Ces médias sociaux jouent un double rôle dans la formation de l'engagement politique des jeunes au Mali. D'une part, ils offrent une plateforme permettant aux jeunes d'exprimer leur opinion politique, de se mobiliser pour des causes et d'entrer en contact avec des personnes partageant les mêmes idées. D'un autre côté, les médias sociaux amplifient les discours de division et la désinformation, contribuant ainsi à un avenir politique toxique. La facilité avec laquelle la désinformation se propage ajoute à la sur les plateformes des médias sociaux peut aggraver les effets négatifs de la polarisation dans la mesure où les utilisateurs peuvent exprimer des opinions extrêmes sans craindre de représailles. On a parlé de au niveau régional, au cours de la crise qu'a traversée mon pays, notre organisation sous-régionale, qui est la CEDEAO ou ECOWAS en anglais, a imposé des sanctions inhumaines et injustifiées contre mon pays, qui a fait que mon pays doit fournir beaucoup plus d'efforts que les pays voisins pour juguler, pour travailler à remettre le pays sur le chemin de la croissance économique. Au niveau international, des pays travaillent actuellement à déstabiliser mon pays et en nous empêchant de mobiliser les ressources financières pour le développement de notre pays et de sa jeunesse. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, comment construire un programme dans ces conditions. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous présenter quelques axes, très rapidement, qui sont issus de notre politique de la jeunesse qui a été adoptée en 2023 par le gouvernement du Mali. Et sur le plan économique, pour lutter contre les polarisations, nous travaillons à promouvoir un enseignement et une formation professionnelle de qualité, axée sur le développement des compétences pour les adolescents et jeunes. Ce travail s'accompagne forcément par une politique qui vise à faciliter l'accès des adolescents et des jeunes à un travail décent et à l'innovation. Et enfin, une thématique qui est très chère au sommet et qui est celle de l'accès au financement. Un travail conséquent doit être fait pour faciliter l'accès des jeunes au financement des projets d'entreprise ainsi que la promotion de l'insertion socio-professionnelle. Sur le plan de la citoyenneté, il est important, pour juguler les conséquences de ces polarisations, de promouvoir la culture du civisme, de la citoyenneté, la protection de l'environnement, mais aussi des activités socio-culturelles. Il est important aussi de renforcer les capacités de nos jeunes pour lutter contre la migration irrégulière, le terrorisme et l'extrémisme violent, tout en permettant à ces adolescents et à ces jeunes d'avoir accès aux services de santé, à la protection sociale, mais aussi à l'accompagnement psychosocial et au bien-être. Il est important aujourd'hui de promouvoir l'accès des jeunes aux postes de responsabilité politique et administrative, mais surtout de réformer le secteur des médias sociaux en introduisant les questions de responsabilité et de redevabilité pour les promoteurs de plateformes digitales et pour les utilisateurs. Pour conclure, dans un monde où les clivages sociaux et politiques tendent à s'accentuer, repenser les programmes des jeunes est crucial pour former une génération capable de naviguer avec discernement, ouverture d'esprit et respect. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Merci beaucoup, Honorable Madame la Ministre. We are going now to turn to the panelists. The theme for today is Rethinking Youth Programming in a Polarized World, moving youth program from edge to the core. And in different country offices where UNDP is working, you have embarked in this process of rethinking programming with the portfolio approach. So I will turn first to Joseph. Briefly, can you share with us your experience in designing and implementing youth programs and how you have moved from the traditional way of programming to the new portfolio approach, and what is the current approach you are using and what is the difference? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Christelle, and good afternoon, everybody. As I've been introduced, my name is Joseph Manirakiza. I'm currently working with UNDP Tanzania, leading the Youth Catalyst portfolio. But before we go to that, Tanzania is, just like many African countries, over 77% of the population is under 35 years old. So that tells you that we are no longer talking about the youth being the future. Basically, we are talking about the youth being the present. And I'm sure that many countries in Africa can basically see themselves in Tanzania. So UNDP, as the main UN agency for sustainable development, has been working in various sectors, and in many cases you find when we kind of try looking for like what do we report as what we are doing for youth, we've been talking about youth focal points, like you have to struggle looking around what actually have we done. So globally at the moment, UNDP decided that we have to start thinking strategically in our project. We've been working more on a project side, and the project is, in a nature, is just narrow in scope. You don't think strategically, and right now, the way the world is going with a lot of opportunities, but also challenges we are seeing, we decided that as an agency, we have to start looking more strategically and use a project or the intervention maybe was like just one other means of delivery, not just their own focus. So in Tanzania, one of the approaches we have taken is just take the portfolio approach, just like in many other countries. And one of the portfolio we have decided to give prominence to is the youth. So we call it Youth Catalyst because we believe, as any, I mean, for a country which is demographically that way, you cannot basically do anything without putting the youth at the center. So what we have done at the country level, after consultation with various stakeholders, including the government, and I'm glad that they are represented here, we decided to look at what are the key areas where we kind of feel like we need a lot of intervention which are starting in youth. So if you talk to a number of people, a number of young people, what they're going to tell you is, one, jobs. Number two, they don't feel they are represented in terms of decision making. Number three, they don't feel supported, right? So we say, okay, fine. In this case, how would we frame our strategic intervention at the country level? So we decided to come up with what we call transformations. Just in the way we structure the portfolio. We have one which is what we call youth-driven economy. Within this, everything that has to, whether it's about catalytic funding for young people to be able to set up their own businesses, because we believe that's actually where we're heading right now. Whether it's about imparting entrepreneurial skills to young people so they can be able to move forward with their own enterprise. So anything that, you know, enable young people to build their own personal economies and then later on contribute to the wider national economy. So it falls under what we call the youth-driven economy. But we also believe that young people cannot be able to drive the economy if they don't have a say in the policies that shape the economy. So we have a portfolio that, that look at the youth agency. How can we have them be able to sit at the table? I think we've been hearing those statements today. To have a say at the table, to be at the center, to be able to influence how decisions are made, how policies are shaped. And we are not saying that they can do that just by being in politics alone. That's just one avenue. But because young people now have got a lot of youth-led CSOs that can be able to mobilize, can be able to contribute to policy making, can actually have come up with policy brief and give to government or other policymakers. So in any way possible. So UNDP is looking at how can we support all those efforts that are going to enable young people to contribute to how decisions are made and how policies are shaped. So that way they can be able to even influence the national economy. But number three, we believe they cannot do the two if they do not have the right skills and competences, the mindset actually shaped. So we have another pillar which look at youth capacities and mindset. So within this, we are going to work with partners and look at whatever can be done to help or shape youth to actually think in the right way, to make sure they have the right complementarity to education they're getting. But also within our partners we work with, like within some of the UN agencies and other international organizations, how can we influence the kind of curriculum that is designed to actually prepare the young people for the present and the future. So that's what we are experimenting right now in Tanzania. And I would say we are going on well. We are talking to every partner. We are talking to government to see how we can actually push it forward. And one of the core program we have that have been working, which is an anchor program within the youth portfolio, is what we call the Funguo program. You touched on it just so I can take on and talk about it. So Funguo, for those who don't speak Swahili, it means keys in Swahili. So it's basically to unlock the potential of young people in being able to set up their business. So what we do within that, we provide catalytic funding to youth-led innovative businesses. We call them startups. We're still struggling on what we define startup. So we provide catalytic funding, we provide technical assistance in terms of mentorship, but also in terms of linking them to potential additional investors so they can be able to grow their businesses. But at the same time, we're also working with what we call the enterprise support organizations, the enablers, because those are the ones that are supposed to come up with a lot of startups that actually are born for, and then they can be able to support to grow. And we're also working with the government agencies to be able to contribute to a better environment for young people and innovators to be able to get support that they need and also be able to scale businesses. So that's, now we are in the process of designing other interventions within the portfolio, guided by the intention to actually make strategic change rather than just looking at what we can achieve tomorrow and then count the KPIs. So that's what I say for now, and probably I can count later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And it's obvious that young people now are at the core of the programming you are doing. Said, Sierra Leone has decided to embark in this process. And what is the intention that you have, and how do you see the programming heading? Thank you.
Good day to you, ma'am, and it is really a pleasure to be among such a great number of young people. And I assure you that we are all young, either by age or by spirit. So we are all young people. But I'm also coming with over 2.5 decades of working with UNDP across different continents, but a number of countries in the region. And the experience of UNDP has been a good journey across the region that I have been witnessing myself. And the stories that my brother Joseph was talking about, 77% of the people in Tanzania are below the age of 35. This is a scenario that is across the region. In Sierra Leone, I believe, is about 70% of young people are living below the age of 35. But the further challenge to that is that about 60% or over are not gainfully employed. And that is definitely a challenge. I believe the young people deserve way better than that. They are the young people who are the soldiers and officers defending the country. The young people are the backbone of the economy, and therefore they deserve to be having their right place in all aspects of life. And I'm very happy, as my Honorable Minister of Youth was mentioning, that Sierra Leone is a country with the biggest number of young people in the cabinet, probably one of the top one in the region. He himself is a testimony to that. We have an Honorable Member of Parliament who is equally young gentleman who is there. And Sierra Leone has made another gain very recently as the election of last year. The country has moved from 12% women parliamentarian to 34% women parliamentarian in the last election. So a lot of good stuff is there. And very recently, we had a meeting of the young entrepreneur in Sierra Leone that we engaged with all of them. The kind of products and services that they are providing is remarkable. Some of them are really of export quality, and they are actually engaging with that sort of initiative. So the overall UNDP program, and as I understand the UNDP youth program is going over a decade long, that has been focusing youth as an important constituency of our program and having a focus on their empowerment, employment, and job. Having said that, as you know, that life continues, the challenges changes, opportunities changes, and that come with their own challenges. And therefore, we should never sit in one place and play it forever, but rather we have to also bring change in our approaches to program and our approaches to development opportunities across the globe. And I believe that portfolio approach that we talk about it is a solution for that. A portfolio approach is not talking about an output. It's not about putting an input with an activity and counting the number, how the output look like. It is more of quality than the quantity. This morning, the panels led by His Excellency the President, they were talking about this, and I quote, the director of UNDP for Regional Bureau for Africa was talking that the youth need to come up not just with the skills and capacity, but character that ensures sustainability, durability, and it goes way beyond numbers and finance, but leadership and capacity. And so portfolio is offering that. And in fact, there is no reason for us not to implement portfolio. If I give the example of Sierra Leone, the country recently, this year, they adopted a 7-year midterm national development plan, which is aligned with the SDG Global Target 2030. Similarly, we just launched the new UN SDCF. For those of you who are not familiar with these kind of UN jargons, it's the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. Again, that is from 2025 all the way to 2030, fully aligned with the National Development Plan. And again, I'm very happy in Sierra Leone, UNDP Sierra Leone has just initiating a new country program document starting from 25 all the way to 2030. So you can see 3 important guiding principle is ahead of us to have a clear vision of where we end, a clear vision of where we go from where we are. And therefore, if we still live with project orientation, fragmentation, then obviously we will not be able to materialize that strategic vision that we have all the way to 2030. And so therefore, UNDP Sierra Leone is also putting youth portfolio as part of its country program document for the next 6 years. And we are very much looking forward that this concerted approach between National Development Plan, UN National Development Plan, UNDP plan, and of course, all other partners coming together with us. And again, this is not a UNDP or a single UN agency. It is a concerted approach of all development partners to come together to go forward. Of course, there are challenges, and I'm sure as we go forward, we can discuss this together with the panel. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Said. As you say, the approach allows to bring together different partners looking at different challenges that are concerning youth and society in general, but at the same time, design, co-design, and co-create strategies that are transforming the systems that can bring out solutions that are, yes, of course, youth-centered, but at the same time, allowing youth as actors to be the owner of the changes that they want. So I will go to Tiong. Sudan has embarked in this process. How is it? How far have you gone, and do you hope to be able to attain a strategy that is prioritizing youth for South Sudan?
Yes, thank you very much. So I would first off like to start by saying I'm so happy to be here and to be able to be in front of you all. My name is Tonga Tak, and I'm working with UNDP South Sudan as a part of the Accelerator Lab program. Within the South Sudan Country Office, we have been likewise learning from our fellow colleagues about this portfolio approach. We've only just began. The South Sudan Country Office recently embarked on a process to create a new value proposition which addresses through portfolio design. And we've also recently tried to pilot through our Accelerator Lab project where we went to the grassroots and we tried to tackle youth unemployment and underemployment, to try and understand it as a more systematic challenge that is faced within South Sudan. So how we went about that approach was, first off, to bring together the different national universities. We went to the final year students as well as those that are recently graduated. And we posed a simple question: what are the barriers that you feel you face to be able to gain employment? And then, like some of the questions I heard being asked earlier on in the main hall, where they were asking, is there actually a skills mismatch? What is the challenge? Is it that the current curriculum is outdated? Or is it that maybe the job market is moving too fast for the universities? And some of the lessons that we learned by actually going to the students was that, yes, they're in these programs, traditional programs, but some of the exciting answers we had was like, they would love to be able to take vocational trainings on the side as well. Because what we've got now is a new crop of young people coming out of university who are highly educated, but then if they were able to partner and match that with actual skills, practical, technical, vocational skills, they then can also become future job creators. So these were just some lessons that we learned by actually bringing in those that we claim that we are supporting and bringing them into the conversation from an early stage on. Another initiative that we've been running within the South Sudan country offices, we have this Timbuktu initiative, which is the University Innovation Pod. That is a regional initiative across the continent where they're creating maker spaces, spaces where young people who have ideas can be able to come and practically implement them in like a pilot phase and to see whether they could be able to create something that could go to market. So we work with young people there on that as well. And we've just been trying to bring together diverse sets of actors rather than looking at say we take youth empowerment as just giving them skills and then we give them maybe a little bit of financing and then we say that that's empowerment. You know, when we look at it from that perspective, does it mean that they really, like, what is empowerment? Okay, if we look at it from an access to justice lens, if I provide you with legal services training, you could say you are empowered. If I provide you with new skills, yes, you're empowered, but holistically, altogether, does it mean that you have a better chance at being able to earn or gain more finances for you to be, I guess, fully to take life on your own? But yeah, so as I said, we're still on this journey. We're learning from our colleagues. Like being on this platform today is giving me a chance to see how Tanzania is approaching this, how Sierra Leone's approaching this, and then also us being the youngest nation in the world, we're always looking at our older brothers and sisters across the continent to be able to help to show us the way forward.
Thank you very much for sharing this experience and how you are embarking in the journey. We are also having in the panel, Madame Catherine, and we are talking about a polarized world and programming for youth. So how, basing on Senegal experience, how are you able to break the silos and shift from a programming that is tailored to this other approach? That's one. And second, is it possible, from your experience, to go beyond the traditional programming? Because youth programming is not new. We've been designing and implementing programs for youth, but how do we go beyond the skilling approach and create impact for young people? Thank you.
Thank you, Christella. And first of all, apologies for being late. I was on another panel, so I had to combine and try to be on two panels at the same time. So, and I'm now switching to English because the other panel was in French, so I'm trying to. I think as Christella mentioned, we as UNDP Senegal had been working on youth initiatives for quite a number of years. So like everybody else, we worked on skills training, we did innovation challenges, we look at entrepreneurship. You all know, that kind of projects. And we wanted to go a little bit beyond that. We realized that we had a lot of initiatives. The government also had a lot of initiatives. The government of Senegal had put millions of dollars into youth unemployment, but not always with the impact that they wanted. With the results that, as some of you may have heard, we had a change of government last March. And it was partly because the young people of Senegal wanted some change. And they have high expectations. 75% of the population in Senegal is under 35. Half of the population is under 18. And these people faced, big challenges, whether it's in terms of youth employment, access to basic services. But a lot of them don't find the opportunities that they need in Senegal and are looking for other opportunities elsewhere, unfortunately. I think for us, the portfolio approach is an opportunity to try to look at all our projects in UNDP, and not just a youth project, but really to look at how our 25 or 30 projects in Senegal should all be going in the same direction and have a youth component and have an impact on youth in Senegal. So we've really tried to take a systems approach. So not just looking at what is it that we should be doing for this group of beneficiaries, but looking at the system as a whole. And how do we look at the youth issue in a more integrated manner? So that, we're not just looking at young people as people that should be given new skills, but that we're looking at young people as human beings in all their dimensions, whether it is skills or health education, but also maybe leadership skills, culture, but looking at all those different dimensions at the same time, because that's how human beings work. But that also required us to work with, and encourage partners to work together. As in many countries, we had the issue in Senegal that you have a Ministry of Youth, a Ministry of Employment, a Ministry of Education. We have lots of different ministries. And on top of it, we have lots of national agencies. We have all sorts of agencies in Senegal, looking at entrepreneurship, looking at youth employment. And these agencies were not working together or are not sharing information. And they're telling us, how can you as UNDP help us work in a more integrated manner? And the extreme example that I often give to illustrate this point is that when we were talking to young people, we found one young man who told us that he took part in 14 trainings organized by all these different agencies and donors. So in Senegal, everybody works on youth. The question is, how do we come together to actually offer an integrated program? And for me, that's really what's important about the portfolio approach. And it's not going to be easy. And we've only been doing this for the last few months and really trying to focus on this. But the challenge for us is, how do we work differently? How do we go beyond individual projects that are very good, but only changing the lives of the beneficiaries under those projects? So how do we go beyond that and try to have a long-term impact on the system? And if I may, if you give me a few more minutes, I just want to say, we've tried this in Senegal, and we're still in the middle of that journey. How do we move from current fragmentation towards a more integrated approach? And the first step is really to recognize the problem. And so talking to all the different actors, including young people themselves, to come up with a common assessment and offer a way forward. And for us, an important step was to organize what we call the Transformer Bootcamp on the portfolio approach. And we did this last month. We did a lot of preparations for it. We went to see all the partners individually, bring them to this bootcamp. It was a 2 days bootcamp, where we talked about the portfolio approach and learned about it. So we had people from government, from all the different ministries, donors, youth groups, UN agencies, to work together and understand what is this portfolio approach. How can we move away or beyond individual projects and initiatives? And so then we want it to be pragmatic. It's going to take time for us to put in place and implement this portfolio approach with all the different actors. But we as UNDP at least decided our intent is to have this role as integrator, as a catalyst, as an innovation lab, and really try to push for this approach. And we also decided we're going to focus on 3 effects as UNDP, at least. And really, you talked about going beyond skills training. For us, the 3 effects that we want to work on, the first one is, of course, creating opportunities, whether there's economic opportunities, social opportunities for young people. But the second effect is really to work with youth as actors for change and really work on youth leadership. That was the other panel I was on. But very important that, we need to go beyond training people or doing innovation challenge, which are all great, and we will continue to do that. But we need to go a little bit beyond that and see how we can change young people mindsets, attitudes, and behaviors. And the third effect that we want to focus on as UNDP in Senegal is to actually, we realize when we're talking to young people, is that we need to transform the narrative on youth. That we need to tell a different story. That young people are not just disruptors or people who are waiting, for something to happen, for the state to help them, but that we needed to change this. And part of changing the narrative is also using culture for this. And I'll just give you a very simple example. We've been actually working with artists to create songs, for example, about young people and climate or environment. So we're trying different approaches, which are a little bit more integrated than the usual work that we've been doing. So maybe I'll just stop here, and then we'll continue the conversation later. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, I would say, integrated approach that is going beyond the traditional way of programming and bringing people together for young people. So I want to turn to the audience, but before I turn to the audience, I have one question. Catherine talked about working as young people as actors. How do you see it practical in your experience or in your different countries? We know young people are claiming space, but do we see it practical in the portfolio approach to work with young people?
Can I take it? What I would say is whether we see it practical or not, it's something which is happening, right? And I always say that probably it's always good to kind of take a proactive approach rather than coming to react when they're actually claiming their space in a manner that we wouldn't want to see. So that we can actually use this kind of thinking that we are taking now as UNDP and probably other partners to actually shape in the direction that we would like to see. So I would say it's practical if we are willing to let it work. Because I think what we are seeing, even within UNDP, but I mean, if you talk to other organizations as well who are taking this kind of approach, it's a learning process for us as well. Catherine mentioned that UNDP has been working in a certain way for a very long time. So kind of moving from that way you are used to working or used to engaging to coming to a new innovative way of working and engaging, it takes a lot of learning even from our side. It takes a lot of changes even within the system you are used to using, because we have a system that we have been using in managing projects that has to be evaluated and aligned with the way we are working. So yes, it's going to work, but it's going to also take a bit of time to realize. But we have no other option other than adopting the new narrative. Yeah.
I believe that young people are the beacon of hope for any society. They come with energy, with dynamism. They are hopeful, and they have made significant changes. If you look at the world, the company that we call it Uber is created by two very young people, and now this is about billions of dollars. The question is, to what extent the young people have the conducive environment that they can realize their dream and they can materialize their hope, and how they can operate in that. If you look at to the young leaders being in the cabinet, being in parliament, being prime ministers across the world, they haven't done anything less than what the elderly or the more mature people have done. So it's really not a question of their capacity and potential. These are there. But what we need to do as UNDP and other development partners, as leaders of the governments, to provide that space for the young people that they can step in and try to realize what they can offer, because the energy, the dynamism, the hope for future, and their Gen Z approach, often they do not look at to the very traditional mechanism of step-by-step to achieve the goal. They come with so many shortcuts, which in fact in today's world, you really don't have time to go step-by-step to do standard. You have to find to be transformative. Transformation means that you have to distance yourself from normative. And so you have to cut short to go to the goal. And I think the young people are known for that transformative approach of moving quick and moving fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Creating space and an enabling environment for young people, going beyond the norm to catch the opportunities that are available for young people. Thank you very much, panelists. Are we open for questions? I don't know if you have questions for the panelists. Is there anyone with a question? You can raise a hand. I see two hands this side. We will take 1, 2, 3. Yes, 3. The one is back there. The other one. Yes, that one. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished panelists. My name is Ibelo Gute Ibodeng.
Excuse me, you will have 1 minute, so
okay.
Go straight. After
right.
Presenting yourself and your country,
okay,
go straight to the question.
Thank you very much. My name is Ibelo Gute Emmanuel Ibodeng, and I represent Nigeria. I'm the co-founder for Ace for Nations. Ace for Nations is a social impact organization based in Rivers State, south of Nigeria. Wonderful presentation that you all have made. I want to ask a question as to the dialogue UNDP is making with the government. Is UNDP making the dialogue to effect change from the angle of policy making? What I'm asking is because policy is very important to drive meaningful change in every society. And for you to make effective change happen, sometimes it's not only about the central government, that is the federal government. The development was cut across every sector, both the state and the local government. So is UNDP only approaching the federal government, or they are approaching the state governments and the local governments? Because the youth cut across these segments of the society. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a lady here who had raised her hand.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Ango, and my question is this. I'm really glad that we spoke about empowering youth using holistic approach. And since we're looking at different dimensions, my question is this. How are we empowering youth? How are we empowering about so my question is, how are we empowering youth into moving from conversation, especially about mental health, taking this conversation about mental health from the site into the core, because at least in my country, unemployment is a key driver of issues around mental
To whom are you addressing the question, please? Okay, Catherine.
My question is, right? Oh, this is better.
Hello, good afternoon. So my name is Unia. This might not like the young people, eh? Okay, so my name is I will use my normal voice. All that. But now when I look at the trajectories, it's like Africa has not even stand yet on the track line. Meanwhile, we are getting into an era where we'll be left behind 10 times. So how is UNDP and other agencies working together with the government to make sure that the infrastructure, the policies and everything are there to make sure that we catch up with the next trend of the world? Because I'm afraid my youngest sister in the one of the remote village, for over 10 years, she has not even seen a computer with her eyes. There is no internet and things like that. Until I became 21, that was the first time I ever know how to power on a computer. And the issue is getting more worse. So how can we make sure, as part of the skilling, how can we make sure that those in the remote regions are part of that skilling process? Yeah, Madam from Senegal, she made mention of using music to propagate on climate and things like that. How can we make sure that people like Bob Marley, the likes of Drake, Rihanna, Davido, how can we use people like that, to propagate, to educate, to sensitize young people of the next trend of the world? Because I will tell you, like she said, I had no opportunity.
30 seconds.
When I was coming up. I started an idea. I had to take garbage, scrap materials to create an idea that could transform a whole country. 10 years after, a few months ago, I won the Presidential Innovation Award of $30,000 US. This is a story of similar young people. Yes, UNDP has been there. I went through the Accelerator Lab program. They trained me. I was able to take that prototype into a company now that employ over 15 young people and vulnerable women and youth in Sierra Leone. Yes, they're getting there. But how do we make sure that those with the brains to transform this world to bring solutions, to be part of, let's have the next Elon Musk in Africa. How can we make sure that everybody is included and they are included at the core, just as my minister said? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will first get answers, and then we can... Okay, I'll take two, because one lady here at the front, and just one behind. And then we get the answers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this session. I've learned a lot from the different panelists, but I am focused on the lady from Senegal, because my first question before you came up was this issue of fragmentation. I've noticed it's a cross-cutting issue along different development agencies, and I'm glad that there is that initiative from UNDP to take up an integrative approach and a coordinative approach. My name is Fumi Samuel. I'm Nigerian. I am an African Young Women Leaders Fellow, and I work with the UNDP office in Lesotho. So my question concerning the systems now is, systems thinking has trade-offs, synergies. How do you intend to leverage these issues of cost and benefits? Because fragmentation causes some people to benefit. And if you say you want to come together and integrate, they are going to lose and they are going to fight you. How do you intend, because these are the practical things, when we say it on paper, it's beautiful, but this is the reality on ground. There are benefits for the institutions, there are also benefits for those who are beneficiaries. How do you intend to leverage that? Secondly, how do you intend to also change the thinking of the donor organizations? Sometimes fragmentation is actually caused by the mentality of the donor organizations, and so most times we are scrambling for the same resources. So how do you also change their mentality to see the beauty of integrated projects and the benefits and the long-lasting impact, such that they can leave the short-term benefits and focus on the long-term? Thank you.
Thank you. Last question at your back, and then we get answers.
Hi, good evening. My name is Doreen Michael, and I'm from Tanzania. So, first of all, congratulations on all the efforts that you've been doing in your respective countries as UNDP collectively. But I would like to specifically talk about the innovation and funding aspects of it. So young people are already pushing to access to these funds, of course, grabbing the funguo, as Mr. Manirakiza had said it, but only a small fraction of ideas are actually being funded. And often, these are the same ideas that are repeatedly being supported over the same circle, like the same people in the ecosystem. Now, my question is, how are we going to make sure that we reform the system, since we're already talking about reimagining the whole systems, into making sure that the systems are more flexible and accepting for young people, but specifically, how can we create new funding models and programs that allow youth to meet the system halfway? And another thing that's off the panel, now back to youth inside the room, there's this belief that I have that we have the solutions to the problem that we see out there. I hated the fact that everybody was speaking was asking, how do you, when for a fact, I know for sure there are some things that we specifically want from UNDP to implement that will benefit us as young people. Now my call is, as we talked about intergenerational dialogue, my call for young people is, can we be more specific on what we want? If I'm going to address Mr. Manirakiza, and I love the fact that he's always acceptive to young people, I'll tell him specifically, I think the funds are circulating among the same people. Can we do something different about it? Instead of asking him, how is UNDP planning to highlight this problem? I don't know if I'm communicating, but it's more of communicating the solution that we feel as young people we want, and challenging them to be accepting of them, rather than always asking them how, when we already have the answers to what exactly we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We turn to Said to start answering the questions, and then we pass to Catherine, and then Manirakiza and Tanguy come lastly.
Okay, thanks. I will just touch on question 1, 3, and 4 briefly. Question 1 about how do we deal with the policies of the government to empower young people. So this is how the UN operate. The National Development Plan is prepared and finalized with very active participation of the United Nations system as a whole and UNDP as well. And when we prepared the United Nations Development Cooperation Framework, that is fully endorsed and approved by the government to ensure that it's alignment with the National Development Plan. So these are going hand by hand, and therefore it's well integrated. And that means that both the host government and United Nations is actually on the same page on the implementation of the government priorities for the next number of years. So therefore, whatever policy is there is actually supported by the UN as well, and we go throughout the implementation period and making whatever adjustment is needed based on the changing priorities in the country. To answer my brother from Sierra Leone, it's good for me to answer because you can verify my answer as well. So first of all, when we talk about development plan, one of the UN principles is leave one no one behind. So the person in the village who have not seen a computer technically is a target priority for the UN. And so how we understand that, because the UNDP is conducting multi-dimensional poverty index surveys by the United Nations that was reviewed through a number of indicators and criteria to identify people for its programming. But when it comes to how the gap of 10 years you talk about it being behind and how we catch up with other people, the beauty of this is like this. I was in Somalia in a very, very little village, and I was buying worth of $50 potato. And when I wanted to pay a $10, the lady who was sitting there, she refused to get the money. She said, please transfer to my M-Paisa. And she was having a very small telephone. Now, what does it mean? This means that technology that is in play in today's world, you don't have to go to every step until you reach to that point where somebody have reached today. No, you can actually make shortcut, as you have done it today over there, the product that you produce from plastic bottle, right? A good quality, good look, and I'm sure that you use so many YouTube clips, some researchers, research and development, and you just adapt it and you move onward. Whether you have infrastructure or not, good news for you, yes. Sierra Leone is one of the 10 countries where UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa has implemented the concept of the Unipod that my brother was talking about it. So that program in Sierra Leone will be inaugurated by end of this year. And in that infrastructure, you not have only technology and understanding and know-how, but also you have CNC machine, you have got 3D printed, you have got all sorts of technology that you can find anywhere in the world is sitting in the Fort Big Close College. It's there. So infrastructure is there, thoughts and know-how is with you, the concept understanding to reach everybody and leave no one behind is all together, and therefore you have all the reason to catch that 10 years gap that you talk about it. One final touch about the fragmentation and the synergy. I give an example so that will hopefully help you to understand better. When we talk about synergy, think this example. You have a bar that can carry the weight of 20 kilograms, right? You have another bar, the same sort of resistance and power. If you put the two of them one on top of the other, what do you think? The quality and the capacity of resistance of the two bars will be how much? Not 40, it's 50, 60. Because by putting two strengths of equal, if it is separate, they have 20-20 each. If you put them together, because they create joint strength, the capacity actually goes double and triple. So synergy is not about taking away benefit or the big distribution resources. It brings more value added, it more opportunity, and therefore synergy creation is only for the better. I leave it there.
Thank you very much for some great questions. On the one on mental health, which I think was at the back, I have to admit, we as UNDP don't work directly on mental health. So UNFPA does a lot more. Having said that, we're very conscious of the fact that, unemployment, lack of opportunities, is having a really big toll on some young people's mental health. And I think part of the issue is not just being employed, it's being occupied. And it is having, you know, I would say, the opportunity to see their future in their own community and their own country. And that's one area in which we're trying to work on. So looking at youth leadership, so doing some specific training on this, and I can talk about this a little bit more, but we've tried to be creative as well, doing some actually training on youth leadership in military camps. We've piloted this year, and that's worked really well. But also looking at youth civic engagement. So that's something we've been working on the last few months as well. So how to encourage young people to become more engaged in their community, with the local government, to see that, you know, it's not just about employment. It's also how to feel useful for your own community, how to be engaged in your community. And I think that's also helping, you know, young people to try to overcome some of the personal difficulties they're having. So that's just very briefly. On the digital, I think this is very important. I mean, for us, it's a key priority. And I would say there's a real danger that we're going to see an aggravation of what I call the digital divide. And that's between rich and poor, men and women, but also young people in urban centers and young people in rural areas, which often have no access to internet. So there are different ways we're trying to engage with this. But I would say in Senegal, for example, we're working with some local startups that are developing programs, training programs for young people that are available offline. So at least, you know, they can use those tools, you know, even if they don't have full access to internet. I would also say I fully agree with you on the issue of using influencers. I often say to my UNDP colleagues, we do UNDP videos, we get 40 views. I used influencers when I was working in Vietnam. The guy got 10,000 views in the first few hours. They have so much more influence on young people than we would ever have. And I think we really need to use those tools if you want to change mindsets. But I really like your story about, you know, how your journey, and congratulations on your great success. But I think this is what we need, is young people not to wait for someone to give them a job. And we want to really help young people who have ideas and energy to help them create jobs for other young people. Because the job market is, I mean, at least in Senegal, we're going to see thousands of young people joining the job market in the next few years. The jobs are not there. So we're going to have to be a lot more creative about this. There was a question on the costs and benefits, which I thought was a great question, because I have to say, it's comfortable to stay with the way we are. We do our little projects. We have a number of beneficiaries. We close the project, we move on to the next one. Everybody does that. I would say, at least in Senegal, I see a great opportunity, because we had elections a few months ago. We've got, I think, the youngest president in Africa. And that new government was partly brought to power by the young people of Senegal. So there's pressure there. And the new authorities know that they have to deliver something for young Senegalese. So yes, maybe in some administrations, there are some people who just want to do the same as usual, yeah? But there's also pressure from the top to actually show some results. And what we're trying to also advocate is that the young people are the majority of the population now. There's the majority of the voters. And I think young people need to be aware of this. They have power. And they should not be shy about exercising that power. So that's why, we're really trying to work on youth leadership, youth civic engagement, so that young people also realize that they can be agents of change, that they have power. And I'll finish on the donors. Yes, the donors also want to do their own projects, find a partner, give them money, A lot of donors, they're in a country for 3 years or 4 years. They do their work, they leave. I'm the same. I move country every 3 or 4 years. This is my 6th country in Senegal. But I think we really need to change that mindset and say to people, you're all working on, professional skills training. You're all putting millions of dollars in this. What impact are you having? Ask questions. Challenge them. What are we delivering for the young people? And it's only if we actually work together through an integrated approach that we're going to have some real change and impact. Otherwise, you're just spending $10, $20 million. You're going to give jobs to maybe 5,000 people or give them skills training, and what? This may seem a lot, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to the needs of young Africans. And so if we really want that real change, I think we're going to have to push much harder. We are going to have to push much harder. Push ourselves and push all our partners as well. Thanks.
Tong, a final remark?
For me, I just wanted to give a little bit more information about the Timbuktu initiative because I was in Cape Town a few days ago when they brought together the different unipods across the continent, and we had the chance to actually meet with the Timbuktu CEO, where she explained about the vision and what it is they hope to achieve for it. So what Timbuktu aims to do is to develop early-stage pipeline, highly scalable tech and tech-enabled game-changing innovations. So everything you were talking about, like how can we have the next Facebook come out of Africa? So like my colleague had mentioned, we have these unipods, which are university innovation spaces, which are within national universities across the continent, and I know they're hoping to scale it to most of the countries around the African continent. And then they also have 10 specific tech hubs. So even here within Rwanda, they have one. They are opening a green hub in Kenya. They're also opening another hub in Egypt. They're doing this across the continent, and each one of these are going to be specializing, one in fintech, another in health tech, ed tech, creatives, green tech, agri-tech, trade tech, mine tech, smart cities, and manu tech. Now with the Timbuktu Foundation, they realized that venture capitalists typically wouldn't want to invest in that early stage, that stage where you come up with the idea and you need that support. So UNDP have been very intentional through the Timbuktu Foundation, where they actually have a moonshot to reach up to $1 billion in funding to support this across the continent. And then if you step out of this hall and you take a right, you will see actually there's a booth there for Timbuktu Foundation, and I advise all of you to pass by it to listen and see how you can be able to tap into that as a resource.
Yes, Joseph.
Right. I think I wanted to start with the Tanzania-focused question. Thanks for bringing that up about thinking about new funding models for innovation and probably being able to reach out to more rather than the same people. Well, I would like to have a bit more conversation about that. But yes, you're right. I think in most cases, when we start initiatives, there are some constraints we have to work within. One being like the model that we are using to be able to implement that particular initiative, especially like what we are doing within Funguo, which it has to be competition-based, but also the limited resources you have, which means you cannot reach as many people as you would like. But we keep on exploring to see what tests can actually be done so you can be able to reach the best innovations which have got the potential to scale and be able to empower more people. So we are, how we work at least within Funguo, we are open to engagement. We keep on learning to see what tests can be done, but also how can we get feedback to build into the new initiative we are building. For instance, since when we started, we've been getting feedback about how can we start early rather than just picking these already operational kind of innovative businesses. And what we have noticed that now we have more and more innovative ventures coming from universities, but the moment students graduate, they don't continue with it because they don't have a support system. So now we have another initiative which is actually working with university, with higher learning institutions to start supporting them from where they are. So hoping that by the time they graduate, they continue with those businesses, because reality is they go on the street to look for jobs, they're not there. So if you can catch even a few who are going to be able to start a business while studying and then can grow them, at least they can create their own jobs and also create jobs for their fellowship. So we keep on learning and improving. Maybe just to finish by commenting on what the young entrepreneur from Sierra Leone said. I mean, digital divide is a reality. That's not just a reality, it's everywhere. But we also have to remember that UNDP, just like any other development agency, we actually work to complement the efforts of the government, right? And probably just giving an example of Tanzania, and I'm sure that so many other African countries have adopted that the government is trying to take connectivity even in remote areas where it hasn't reached there. So with the hope that now more people can be able to adopt it and start using it and be able to leapfrog in so many ways. So what now other players need to do is to build on top of that. Wherever there is connectivity that has reached there, that's why now the digital skills have to follow. There are many people who are working on last mile connectivities, making it easy for us we can be able to capitalize on those investments that are being made. And I believe more countries are actually making more progress in that. And it's an undeniable fact that once you get this kind of getting in, once you get people using technology, there are so many things that you actually get access to. Education, health, information, and everything. And that feeds into what, as an agency, UNDP is trying to push for sustainable development. And you cannot achieve it if people do not have access to information. Yeah. So I believe there are quite a lot of initiatives that are being done across the country. Maybe the challenge is how can we do it faster and at scale?
Thank you very much. Help me to thank the panelists. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing your experience. Before we leave the room, I will welcome my colleague Letitia to make some communication. Panelists, you can join the audience. Thank you.
Merci Christelle, merci encore à tous et à toutes d'être venus, d'avoir participé à ce panel très enrichissant. Merci à nos brillants panélistes et aussi à toutes les personnes qui ont posé des questions très profondes qui nous ont permis en tout cas d'aller vraiment dans le fond du sujet. Il y a juste quelques informations techniques pour les jeunes, les moins jeunes et les plus jeunes. Je vais laisser donc la parole à une plus jeune que moi pour vous donner donc cette information.
Merci, thank you very much. I believe everybody talk English, but I can speak in French, so I'm perfectly bilingual. I am Cameroonian Grace Baketa from the African Young Women Leader. So I'm just here to do a kind of little announcement. Please join us for the Chiles networking events at BK Arena. Please, who knows BK Arena? Okay, for those who don't know, you can just ask the ushers outside and they'll be able to guide you. It is from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. You will enjoy DJs, enjoy drinks and snacks while connecting with fellow attendees. Please connect with me. I'll be happy if all you want to connect with me. I want to connect with all of you. So don't miss. Please register. For you to register, just scan the QR code at the desk next door and don't miss out and for this relaxed evening. I hope to see you all there. Thank you.